I'm Alan Spears with Occupy Democrats, and making her annual public appearance in the media spotlight, Melania Trump was seen on television doing an interview with, well, you guessed it, Fox News, and it went about as well as you might expect. Yes, it would seem that finally, after we are nearly at the end of this campaign, Melania has decided to come out publicly and support her husband. What a pleasant surprise. Now, despite Melania's best efforts to put on that mask and pretend like she loves her husband and do an interview talking about how great Donald Trump is, unfortunately, this interview was more of a detriment to the Trump campaign than it was a boon. Now, I have a whole bunch of different highlights that I want to show you in today's video, but to start us off, let's see what Melania had to say about her husband's rather vitriolic behavior online.
American people need to decide what they really want. Maybe some, strong tweets, but everything else great for this country. So it's all in the American people's hands on November 5th.
Ah, yes, the former president is just a fantastic man, except for the fact that he occasionally has some strong tweets. You are dead on, Melania. Okay, so clearly that question was not the easiest to answer, as Donald Trump is a ball of vitriolic hatred and bigotry, but let's see what Melania had to say about the two attempts now on her husband's life.
A few weeks later, there's another attempt on your husband's life at your golf course. Where were you, and what was your reaction to this attempt?
I was in New York City, actually. And I saw it on the television. And as soon as I saw it on television, I called again. And he was okay because Secret Service were great. The guys that they were with him, they were fantastic. And I think both of the events, they were really miracles. If you really think about it, the July 13 was a miracle, like that much, and he could not be with us.
And he normally doesn't call for that one screen. He waits
Correct.
till the end of the
Correct.
speech. So just looking at that screen allowed him to turn his head.
I think something was watching over him. I think it's almost like country really needs him.
Well, Melania, it is clearly a miracle that your husband hasn't taken the damn hint yet and dropped out of the race, because clearly even conservatives hate him. And I do find it hilarious that in both attempts on Donald Trump's life, Melania was back in New York and clearly not in direct communication with her husband, as she had to call and get updates. It's just clear that this marriage is a complete and utter sham.
Mainstream media branding him as a threat to democracy, calling him vile names, they only fueling a toxic atmosphere and giving power all of these people that they want to do harm to him. This needs to stop. This needs to stop. The country needs to unite. And I encourage everybody to read my letter that I wrote on July 14 again, because that cannot continue.
Letter was very powerful. What made you get to the point of writing that letter?
That's how I felt. That's how I felt.
How do you feel when people say they don't like him? What do you wish they knew about him?
That he is really a family man. He loves his family. He loves this country. And all he wants to build better and prosperous.
Yeah, he's just strong. He's not afraid to
No, he's not
talk
strong.
about the way
you
it
could
really
see
is.
the way he was when he was shot, that in the ear, that the way he stood up and he said, fight, 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 because we cannot allow that to happen.
Yes, poor pitiful Melania is desperately trying to defend her husband, and yet every action he takes, every word out of his mouth indicates to us otherwise, that he is far and away from some sort of family man, from some sort of fatherly figure. Let's also not forget the fact that Donald Trump has not lived with Melania since they were at the White House together, and even then, they didn't seem to spend a whole lot of time together. Melania was seen in her home at New York a number of different times away from the White House, so clearly these two are not in the most healthy of relationships.
How did you feel about Donald Trump running again?
I support him. I know how passionate he is to make America great again.
We saw you backstage at the RNC. Do you want to talk about why you decided not to come out on stage and give a speech like you did in 2016?
It was my decision. I think was just the time. I think was the right time. In days before, I wrote a beautiful letter to America.
Yes.
And I think in one way that letter was my speech.
Okay, so she supports her husband, but doesn't make a speech like she previously did in support of him, when that would have been a big gesture of support. So we're getting some conflicting messaging here, Melania. Okay, but maybe Melania's nonsensical, rambling non-answers and Fox's desperate attempts to use that as propaganda for Trump and the right wing are just a defense mechanism. Maybe it's a stress response from the raid by the FBI on Mar-a-Lago. And let's see what Melania had to say about that.
The raid on Mar-a-Lago, the house manager texts you and says the FBI is outside the house. They had access to my bedroom, closets, office, and rummaged through my personal items. Even searched Barron's room, you say. So how invasive was that? Did it make you angry? How did you feel?
Yeah, it made me angry. Yes, invasion of privacy. And the way it was done I was really surprised.
You wanted to see it for your own eyes. With your own eyes, what did it look like when you walked back in your house that had been raided?
I saw unpleasant stuff that nobody wants to see it. And you get angry because, nobody should be putting up with that kind of stuff. Some person, I don't even know who or how many people, they went through my stuff.
You know what makes me angry, Melania? Your husband, and the fact that he has worked endlessly to try to destroy the safeguards, to try to upend the checks and balances in our democracy, in our system of government, to protect us the people, from a tyrannical monster like your husband. I'm so gosh darn sorry you had to suffer the consequences of the actions and crimes, let's be clear, crimes your husband committed while in office, and that you are reaping what you're sowing. That must be so very hard for you. If you think for 1 second that this woman or her family deserves any ounce of sympathy, you have lost the plot. These people are monsters. They deserve nothing but your utter contempt, for they have nothing but utter contempt for you. And just a big old shout out to Fox News for trying to draw up sympathy for a wannabe fascist wife and doing their darndest to tear down the country that helped create them.